Hey everybody, I am David, and today I want to talk about my top 5 superhero animated movies. That's right, because in honor of The Incredibles 2 coming out next Friday, I thought it would be a fun little top 5 video to talk about the 5 animated movies that are superhero films also at the same time. These are theatrical films, so they're not those direct-to-DVD Marvel or DC or whatever other superhero animated movies that are out on DVD or streaming services formats. I wanted to keep this simple, and theatrical is a little bit different. There's a little bit more of a higher budget there, a little bit more better quality in a lot of ways. There's some really good direct-to-videos as well, but I wanted to keep this theatrical only to keep it fair. There are actually 6 superhero animated movies out there, but one of them I haven't seen yet. Even though I've heard good things about it, I just haven't gotten myself to push myself to see it, and that is Captain Underpants, the first epic film, movie, whatever. I know a lot of people like this movie. It's gotten good reviews. I think it's one of those rare movies that have like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. But that's because not a lot of critics actually went to go see it. I saw how many critics saw it. It wasn't that many. Or at least last time I checked was when last year when the movie came out. So I don't know. Maybe the critics, maybe it's built and now it went down or something a little bit. I don't know. But look, I'm sure it's a good movie. One day I'm going to check it out. I just haven't gotten around to seeing it now. So that's why this is going to be top 5. You can probably guess which order it will all be in. Maybe you won't know if you don't know me very well. And look, there's no right or wrong answers. You guys can make your own list and tell me which ones, the order from best to worst that you like it in, or worst to best, whichever way. For this list, because I like to keep number 1 a surprise, I'm going to start off with number 5, which is Megamind. This is from DreamWorks Animation. Will Ferrell, Brad Pitt, Jonah Hill, and Tina Fey all did voices in this one. I remember when this movie came out. It was obviously a few years after The Incredibles, and DreamWorks and Pixar and Disney have all had a reputation of sometimes there would be this one movie that was very similar to the other movie from that studio. If you guys remember, there was the Ants from DreamWorks. DreamWorks Animation did Ants, and that very same year came what is it called? A Bug's Life. And then there was also Finding Nemo from Pixar, and then DreamWorks had A Shark's Tale. I don't know if those two came out the same year. Those two might have been a year apart or something like that, but there was some of that stuff going on, a lot of people were saying, and of course the first Incredibles came out in 2004, but Megamind came out in 2010. And I'm going to admit, this was a little underwhelming. It was enjoyable at times, but for the most part, comparing it to some of the other movies that are on this list, I think it was the weakest of the bunch. Will Ferrell and Brad Pitt and Tina Fey do the best and Jonah Hill do the best that they can. This is also kind of like one of those first few times where we started seeing, well, this is about the villain, not really about the hero. It kind of was flipping the story on his head, and funny enough, after that, we started getting movies like Maleficent and Suicide Squad sometime after, a couple years after, actually. So this was kind of the first one to try to do something with the villain instead of actually making it about the hero. There were a lot of nice Superman references. You can tell there was some Superman influence in there as well. But for the most part, yeah, I would say a lot of the jokes kind of fall flat in the movie. But overall, I think it's a fun family film for the kids for sure. Next on my list, I have at number 4, Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. A lot of Batman fans are gonna cheer this one on. Some probably will put it higher on their list, maybe. Some people forget that this was a theatrical movie. Unlike all the other movies from this production crew, Bruce Timm, who produces Batman the Animated Series, as well as many of the other spin-offs, Batman Beyond and Justice League, etc., He produced, and he was one of the writers or directors, I believe, as well. Kurt Gaeta as well. Obviously, Kevin Conroy is everybody's Batman. Mark Hamill does the voice of the Joker once again. And look, this movie is really great. And there was a time where I would have considered it the best Batman movie until Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy came in and gave us the best live action version of Batman. But I can understand if people do put this up there on their list because it is an original story that is not really based off the comics. The Phantasm character was created specifically for this movie, and they do such a great job at building it up, this mystery behind this Phantasm. And I think when I watched the movie for the first time, it was a really engaging story seeing how it all played out. Some people that are a little bit younger today might not appreciate it because the animation is kind of out today. It's not computer animation. As you'll see, this is the only superhero animated film that was theatrical, that was not computer animation. But that shouldn't stop it from being a good movie. And I hope a lot of younger audiences do go back and check this one out if you haven't already. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it is really great storytelling for this classic character. And I totally recommend it for anyone that is curious about it. Number 3, I have another Batman movie, the Lego Batman movie. For a Batman fan, this is probably the funnest Batman movie you could watch. It's very different from Batman Mask of the Phantasm, where that one's a little bit more serious. This one is more comedic, and it's kind of a love letter to Batman. If you are a Batman fan and have seen plenty of the shows, plenty of the comics, plenty of the movies, there's a lot of references and inside jokes to all of it there. And the dynamic between Batman and the Joker in this movie, Joker is voiced by Zach Galifianakis, while Batman is voiced by Will Arnett, who did the voice of Batman in the Lego movie, which the sequel is coming out very soon. Trailer looks pretty good for that one. But yes, he was so great in the Lego Batman movie he was so great in the Lego movie that getting his own movie was worth it. And that was something people were like, does it really need a spin-off movie? But yes, it did, and it was a lot of fun. So really love this movie. I wish it did much better than it did, especially since lots of people are apparently Batman fans, or are people getting Batman fatigue. I don't think so. Who doesn't love Batman? Batman's the most badass superhero of all time. So moving on. Next, at number 2, I have Big Hero 6. I love this movie. This movie is up there in my top animated movies of all time. Top 10, most likely. If not top 10, for sure top 15. This is a joy. This is an emotional film. I love it on every level. I think the characters are very enjoyable. Some people will say the twist towards the end was a little weak, but I remember loving it, and I rewatched it again recently, not too long ago, and I still think the twist is effective. And was it a little bit of a stretch? I don't think so. I think, no, I could see how they could do that. Yeah, they tried hammering this other character as the twist, as the antagonist, but I really did like the way it all played out. And the kid hero and Baymax, seeing them together is such an emotional part of the movie. It's the heart of the movie, and how the movie deals with death and how we overcome it. I really did like that. I thought that was a really great part of the movie, and I remember crying my eyes out during that one emotional scene where Hero is losing it and full of anger and all that, because we have reached that point. Some of us have reached that emotional level before where we're so angry when someone passes away that we're all full of mixed emotions, and it was nice to see a family film deal with that subject. So now the number 1 movie on my list if you haven't guessed already, that's right, The Incredibles. The Incredibles, one of my all-time favorite Pixar movies. This is probably my second favorite Pixar movie, right behind Toy Story 3. I love this movie. As someone who's a fan of superhero movies, this has a mix of all of it, including the emotional level. This is a movie about family. This is something that this movie gets right over those live-action Fantastic Four movies, which obviously don't even come close to The Incredibles. The Incredibles is the Fantastic Four done right, as many have pointed out many times before. And obviously, we're all excited for The Incredibles 2, because of all the Pixar movies that have gotten sequels in the past, this is the one that deserved the sequel the most. Everybody can agree with that, I think, because of all the superhero movies that have gotten sequels. It makes us crazy how this movie hasn't gotten one yet. Instead, we got Cars 2, Cars 3, Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3, Monsters University, and Finding Dory. And it's like, where's our Incredibles 2? Well, thankfully, Brad Bird decided to return to animation after 2 live-action films. And he said, you know what? Now's the time to do another Incredibles. And I'm surprised the sequel isn't going to be leaping a couple years ahead like some of the other movies have done, or behind in terms of Monsters University. But yeah, I am excited, and this movie still holds up very well. I started noticing the animation style in more recent Pixar films is definitely a lot different than it is back in 2004. But remember, The Incredibles was like, I think, the 4th or 5th Pixar movie that came out. So this was still in Pixar's early stages, and not only for Pixar, but for superhero movies in general. This came out the same year as the second Tobey Maguire Spider-Man film. So I thought it was always funny that there was that one scene in The Incredibles 2 where, or in The Incredibles, where Mr. Incredible stops a train, very similar to Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2. And I turned to my friend, didn't Spider-Man do this earlier this year? I remember watching that in the theater and thinking that. So that's it, guys. Those are my top 5 superhero animated movies, the theatrical movies. List down your the way you would list them in the comment section below. Don't be afraid. There's no right or wrong answers here. We all respect one another, I hope. And I don't think I have to worry. I think animation fans are a little bit more lighter than other fandoms nowadays. So comment below, like this video if you like my list, subscribe to my channel if you are a huge animation fan, especially of Disney or Pixar, even DreamWorks too. Those are the 3 that I usually like sticking with. But obviously, as you see there, Warner Brothers made it into my list. Yeah, so until next time, everybody, take care.